Good evening, everybody. First of all, on behalf of Milan, I would like to introduce Milan is a 100% volunteer-driven, non-profit 501c3 association of people from India living in United States with chapters and membership across the US pursuing participative mission of sharing and caring the local of the mainstream to foster constructive relationship between individual, communities, institution, academia, and policymakers. We create and support programs, our services and resources dedicated to building an environment of exploration, collaboration, and celebration of the diverse culture communities in order to build bridge of mutual understanding, interest, and trust. Thank you so much for joining in today's program. Now, I would like to request our Milan chairman, Shri Suresh Sharma ji, to proceed in the next segment of the program. Suresh ji, are you able to hear us?
Yes. Hello, everyone. You're most welcome, for joining us over here. It's an honor to have you all with us. Coming to the topic, for this evening, proactive approach against hate, racism, and anti-Semitism. We see, we read, and we hear that hate in America has become commonplace. So what can we do to stop this hate? What we need is the people not to be silent when they see hate against any minority group, whether they are Jewish, Black or Asians or Muslims, whatever it may be. We have to push back to keep the values of this country strong. In this meeting, we are very lucky to have very distinguished, guests, having very close contacts with the community and very well conversant with the community pain points. So I would like to start with our community host, Dr. Prasad Srinivasan. Is a highly admired personality as a healthcare provider. His 4 terms as Connecticut State Representative and political environment and his big exposures involving with the public issues has made him a strong believer. He is a preacher and a practitioner of giving back, to the community in which we live. But especially, for the Indian community, he is very much that, we should be giving back, to the mainstream where we live. Actually, he himself is a big donor. He has donated, $100,000 to Hartford Hospital for advancement of medicine to robotics. Not only that, he's also has given $100,000 to the Hartford Foundation, public giving, in support of their various, community projects. So with this, it's a pleasure, asking him to share his passion with you all. Dr. Prasad, please. Dr. Prasad.
Dr. Prasad, sorry, can you please unmute yourself now? Sorry.
Thank you. I want to thank Suresh Sharma, I want to thank Hari Sharma for putting together, and the entire organization, the Milan organization, for getting together on this platform to discuss such a critical issue. As the President Suresh Sharma just mentioned, the rise in hate groups, the rise in hate crimes in the United States is an epidemic these days. Hate groups, I believe, according to some statistics, are up 100% in the last 20 years. Hate crimes are up by about 200%. And this, unfortunately, is what we see and hear about both in Connecticut as well as the rest of our country. These locations for hate crimes, for racist acts, happen in the most vulnerable of all places. We see them, hear about them all the time in Black neighborhoods and in various places of worships. If you look at the profile of these individual perpetrators, you look at the individual prejudices. You and I, I'm sure, are not free of them. We have our prejudices, no doubt about them. They are molded by our family, friends, and the neighborhood that we live in. But when you look at the ideology of the people that are influenced by cable news, by social media, they are the perpetrators. And the ideology for them is that of supremacy. That I see and read and hear about is the basis, unfortunately, about these hate crimes and the crimes against race. They are a consequence of a social system that unfortunately continues to perpetuate white supremacy. That's the right groups that we have to be dealing with on an ongoing basis. That's the challenge facing all of us. Conspiracy theories, they divide America from one another. They divide us. They erode the trust that we have in our government, in our non-government institutions. And of course, they undermine the very basis, the very element of this country, our democracy. So how do we go about? And I'm looking forward to hearing from our distinguished guests that we have lined up later this evening. You know, hugs and kisses can get us only so far, but not a long way when it comes to hate crimes, when it comes to racist crimes. We need to address this by making the appropriate policy changes. We have our local leaders, we have our state leaders, and we have our federal leaders joining us this evening. And it is through the process, through policy changes, that we need to constantly, continuously. There are changes already made. Connecticut is a strong state. We have a lot of laws in the books. But these laws, these policies need to be constantly renewed. They need to be reviewed, updated. And most important of all, as we all know, laws can be on the books. Those laws need to be appropriately enforced. We're looking forward to our esteemed panelists who are leaders in their various fields in local, state, and federal government to share their thoughts in the upcoming session as to what is it that can be done so that we strengthen the policies that are already there and, of course, enforce them. Along with this important issue of policy changes, we need to classify, in my opinion, hate groups as gangs. Once you consider a hate group as a gang, I'm told it enables law enforcement resources to be more persuasive. It gives them a wider range of things they can do because there's no longer groups, it becomes a gang, something that our leaders need to consider and help us with moving forward.
Dr. Prasad, I just wanted to take 1 minute, 1 second pause. Good evening, Senator Richard. Blumenthal. Senator Blumenthal has joined. I just wanted to let host know that. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Sorry
Good
for the
evening.
interruption.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Senator Blumenthal. Good to see you back again, and we look forward to your words later in the evening. And to continue and on this conversation that we have as to what is it that we need to move forward, we need to have a media campaign on education. Suresh Sharma briefly touched upon that in this introduction. We need to have an education program for the general public, for students and school administrators. What are the do's and don'ts when one is a victim, when one is a witness, or one suspects a crime that has been communicated? How do we go about communicating that is something that we need to make sure that every citizen, every resident in our state and our nation is aware what has to be done, what are the do's and don'ts. Along with the do's and don'ts, we need to make sure a constant concern that we have the innocent victim, the innocent bystander of retaliation. How are we going to protect against retaliation of somebody who speaks up, somebody who comes forward? Hateful, racist graffiti, which we see all the time, unfortunately, including very recently in our state, needs to be addressed as in the appropriate way for the hate crime that it is. So it is, in my humble opinion, through policy making, through proper communication and education, that we can effectively squash the ugly head of racism and hate crimes. I want to leave behind what we all, each and every one of us this evening have in common. For our children, for our grandchildren, and for generations to come, we need to leave behind a land that is even better than the one that we founded. I've been here now for about 45 years, actually 48 to be exact. I was reflecting on that earlier this evening. And what I felt and what I experienced earlier on in my days, adjusting to the Western society, adjusting to the United States, is nothing compared to what all of us as community leaders, community members are experiencing these days, the challenges. And the challenges obviously have a long way to go before we are able to get a good control. I always remember and think of the words of Robert Frost. We all, each one of us, have miles to go and miles to go before we are ready to go to sleep. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity this evening, and I look forward to our conversation the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prasad, for your inspiring thoughts. And that's what exactly are the challenges and the opportunities which we see, and we'll go further with it. Thanks a lot for your participation. Now, now I just got a message that our beloved, senior U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal has arrived. Actually, he is very much, a schedule which is making him so busy. So I'm really, grateful that he took time, to be with us this evening. Thank you very much for your kind, joining this meeting also. So I would like to say, that our senior U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal, who is a 5 terms as a Connecticut Attorney General and 2 terms senior, senator, he has the commitment to be, in Connecticut every weekend to be with people of Connecticut. And then he has created, a program with the name A Listening Tour to understand the community's issues. Various issues, of course, especially racism, hate, gun control, to name a few. With this, I would invite our honorable senator, who belongs to the community, and the community belongs to you, to share his thoughts.
Thank you. I am so deeply honored to join you tonight, and I appreciate that wonderful introduction, and I am honored to follow Dr. Srinivasan, to be with Mayor Bronin. I saw my wonderful friend Saud Anwar, extraordinary leader in the state Senate, and I know that we're going to be joined by other leaders such as Attorney General William Tong. And I think this gathering is tremendously important as a milestone in the midst of a resurgence of hate, racism, and bias in the state of Connecticut, but all around the country. If you read the intelligence community reports, as I do, about what the threats are to our internal security, what the FBI or other national intelligence agencies say is that the major threat is no longer the terrorists from outside the country who want to fly planes into buildings or get on planes with explosives. It is now within the United States. Domestic terrorism, violent extremism, white supremacy. And we see it in the community in the leaflets or flyers that may be distributed, in the attack on Mariam Khan, extraordinary state representative and friend, in the kind of hate speech and indeed violence that we see even in Connecticut. And I say even in Connecticut because Connecticut has a proud history of tolerance and inclusion. And so this gathering inspires me to continue the work that I have been doing and that must be continued. Number one, stronger prohibitions against hate crimes. I champion the No Hate Act, which was passed just about a year and a half ago, signed by the president, providing more reporting mechanisms, more support for local and state police, more prosecutorial resources. And that is the kind of measure that we need to continue in the United States Congress. I had bipartisan support for that measure, and it passed 94-1. I believe that vast, overwhelming bipartisan majority really reflects the heart of America. The overwhelming majority of the people of America, not just our state, United States senators, but the people of America have zero tolerance for hatred and bias, even though it is a virus, a cancer that continues to breed. Number two, more resources for our Department of Justice, the Community Relations Division, and others in the Department of Justice that will take prosecutorial action, but also bring communities together. And I am going to invite members of this group to come to Washington, to talk to my colleagues. As powerful and persuasive and convincing as this group is on this Zoom call, I think we need to bring your fervor for justice and for stopping hate crimes down to Washington. And I hope that my colleagues will respect, as I do, the kind of spirit that you bring to this conversation. And I believe that Representative Khan has raised some very, very powerful and important issues that we need to really respect and listen to in this state. And I'll be interested in hearing the comments that others have, but the attack on her has to be investigated as a hate crime. It may be determined that there were other motives. As a former prosecutor, I'm not going to prejudge the results of the investigation, but certainly there are indicia, there are evidence in some of the statements that we've heard that in fact it was a hate crime. Just the circumstances involving the place and the holiday and other factors, I think, require that it be investigated as a hate crime. And finally, let me just say, you know, we need to express to everyone that whether it's the hate speech in the public square or the swastikas that are drawn on synagogues or the leaflets, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslimism, anti-Black, anti-Sikh, there's no place in America for this kind of sentiment. They are not pranks. They're not jokes. They reflect that virus that I mentioned earlier, violent extremism. Violent extremism is judged by our intelligence agencies as the most persistent and lethal threat to America today. And it's been given license and legitimacy by some of our major political figures, sad to say. I never thought in America we would see the kind of hate speech that we have that has been given legitimacy by some of the attitudes and statements of major political figures. So I hope in Connecticut, we will work to establish a hate-free zone, that we will prosecute vigorously and rigorously any hate crimes under state law or now federal law, as strengthened by the No Hate Act that I helped to lead, and that we will make use of all the resources, additional resources that I think are necessary. And again, my thanks to the Milan Cultural Association, to everyone on this call. Thank you for your leadership, your courage in stepping up and speaking out, and your strength of purpose in combating hate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our most beloved, Senator, your thoughts are a very big, things for us. And actually, it's a start. We are just leaving it behind, it's a start where we need to make a forum or a continuous process. And we will always be looking for your blessings and the ideas, to lead us and to let us, move further, because this first, attempt is to have, the ideas, the way you have given us, the way the others, experienced leaders, and the policymakers, they are discussing, today. It will be the points, which we are putting together and go from there. But don't forget us, because we are into this way and we need, a lot of help from you all, because you will be our mentors and we will be your followers. But as you said, the trial and the efforts of us, will be to make Connecticut a hate-free state.
Well, I could never forget you, Suresh,
Yeah.
and I can promise you that I will be back every weekend. I will be listening all around the state. I will be at your beck and call whenever you think I should be anywhere. And I know my fellow leaders on this call feel the same way. So thank you for your leadership. I have a real personal thanks to you. Thank you.
My pleasure, sir. And it's an honor. And I look forward to one of the listening tours, you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator. And Sharma ji, just quick announcement that I have some question which I got in the registration, and after our speaker, we will go with the question in the later part of the segment. So please proceed further.
Okay. So you want to start with the question now?
No, I think we can go with the next speaker.
Okay. Senator Blumenthal, you will be with us for another 15 minutes?
Oh, of course.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I would like, to introduce our Mayor Luke Brown, and so, then we can go for some question and answers also at that time. So.
I'm going to.
With our
I'm going to.
Mayor
I think.
Luke Brown.
I was
Oh,
not
I'm
able to able to unmute myself, but I am now. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Suresh, and thank you to everyone for the opportunity to join you today. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Milan for all that you do in Hartford and in our region to celebrate our diversity and to create opportunities for us to come together. And I've been so grateful for that partnership and for all that Milan Cultural Association has done to support cultural events in the city. So I want to start with a thank you. Also, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of this conversation, which is really important. And, I in part because I don't want to repeat the important things that Prasad has said and that Senator Blumenthal has said. I think it is important to start with the acknowledgement, as many have, that we're in a time when some leaders have given license to hate. They have empowered voices of hate in a way that we haven't seen in a long, long time, in a way that most of us could never have imagined. And I agree that we need to condemn that hate and show that we will not accept it, and that where there are acts of hate and criminal acts of hate, that we will prosecute them fully. But I also want to come at this from a different angle, which is that I think one of the most effective things we can do to combat hate is to take joy and celebrate the diversity that we cherish. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so thankful for the work that Milan does. As a city, we're really grateful for the Vaisakhi celebration, for example, that happened in Bushnell Park, for the other festivals that have been held in Bushnell Park. We're proud as a city to host the first iftar dinner this past spring inside City Hall, which had never been done before. And as a city, of course, we're an incredibly diverse city, and a city of so many ethnicities, so many religions, so many races, and so many cultures that comes together. And that's what is so beautiful about the city of Hartford and about the state of Connecticut. And we try in so many ways to make sure that we are celebrating that diversity, whether it's through the festivals that we have in the summer, celebrating our Puerto Rican community, our West Indian community, our Asian community, our LGBT community, or those ways in which we partner to make sure that we are creating forums for the community to come together and share both challenges and joys. But I do think that one of the best things we can do is to continue to demonstrate that we as a city are so proud of the fact that we continue to be a place that has open arms. I have loved seeing the South Asian community in Hartford and in Greater Hartford grow stronger and stronger and more active and more involved and more visible. And it's been a beautiful thing to see. I love that almost every night, when I look outside my window at Bushnell Park, I see a pickup cricket game. That wasn't true 10 years ago, but it's something that I love. And so I think one of the most effective ways we can combat hate is through joy and love and celebration of diversity, that we refuse to let those who want hate to drive the narrative, we refuse to let them do that. That, if there are those who want division and anger and negativity and disrespect to dominate our discussion, because the more we talk about it, that the more anxious and angry we become. And of course, again, we have to call out and condemn hate. But I think the way we really win is by celebrating what we love about this diverse state and this diverse city. And so I hope that we'll continue to do that. And again, I'm so grateful to Milan for all the work that you have done to do that, in particular for the Indian and the South Asian communities in Hartford and in Greater Hartford. So I hope to continue to be a partner in that work in any way we can. And and that we continue to find new ways. Again, I think the Iftar and Vaisakhi are great examples of new celebrations that came to Hartford this year. But I hope that we can continue to work together to find new ways to recognize, to honor, to share, and to celebrate the wide variety of cultures that make us such a beautiful tapestry. Happy to say more, but that's the main thing that I wanted to share tonight, along with, again, my gratitude for the partnership that we've had.
I just want to say, for our mayor, working with him, I have seen he has a very keen eye for the future to make Hartford a city of peaceful, coexistence. And as he is mentioning, by just bringing more businesses and increasing, cultural events, what else is needed? Where there is a prosperity, where is the cultural, awareness, which is the key factors, to reduce these, hatred and racism, because the more the well-informed you people are, people there, the more the happier, and the harmonious environment will be there. Thank you very much, for your vision to bring, Hartford to be one of the really worth living city. Thanks a lot. Now, as they are running short of time, I know their schedules. So, Hariji, you can, bring question and answer questions,
All right. And I would like to request, thank you so much, Senator Saud Anwar. I just saw that I wanted to unmute because some of the questions. So can we go ahead with the questions? And the first question is from Sharbesh Damble. And this is not specific because some of the question I have for the specific speaker. So I will let you know, but this is open. How can we ensure so that anti-racism education is provided in schools?
I can speak to that. I think I was in the state of Connecticut. First of all, it's truly an honor. I wanted to clarify, should I give my little speech too, or I'm just in the question and answer part of this program?
I would, I think, Sureshji, I was thinking that probably we can request Saudji to go with the speech and then we can go with the program, how it is. I think, yeah, we are not able to hear you, Sureshji.
Yeah, okay. So we can go with our most, name, which is the household name with the Indian and the Muslim community. Those who love, this Senate of ours, Southern world, because of wherever you see, there is an issue, he is there, to help the community people. Not a single call will be, gone without his response, to it. He is so much involved into the community. And that is how he has endeared himself to that level that, people, they just go and call, South, we need your help. And he is there, he will always go out of the box, out of the way, to help the community. We are very thankful to you. And in this process, we talked about with you also, and you have encouraged us to go further, and his full support, to go for this campaign against hate, racism, and anti-Semitism. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suresh Bhai.
Senator Saud Anwar ji, and please share this passion with the
Thank you.
audience over here.
Thank you, Suresh Bhai. Thank you so much, Milan, for having me here. Good evening, namaste, sat sri akal, salam, ni hao, and buenas noches. looking at the people in the background, so I'm trying to touch all the backgrounds of everybody who's on this
He
audience.
remembers all the things.
And I just wanted you to know
Very good.
it's an honor for me to be part of this conversation because it's a very important conversation that we are having. And it's very relevant conversation that we are having. And I'm just going to talk a few things that I think my colleagues and my friends and my teachers who have spoken already. So I'm not going to repeat the things that they have said. I'm just going to add a few more aspects to it and hopefully share some of the work that I'm working on at this time and have been able to achieve, thankfully. So first and foremost, it's scary statistic to share that in 2020 for the state of Connecticut, if you look at the percentage of the hate crimes that have happened in our state, 77% of those are based on an individual's race, ethnicity, heritage, and religion. Now, this does not make the news as much, but all of the individuals who may look a little different from a certain makeup, all of the people who speak a little different, all of them who are of different ethnicity, in the state of Connecticut, of all the crimes, 77% are going to be, you may be potential victim. And that's very relevant to us and the people on this conversation and the advocates and the leaders to look at it from that perspective. And that's why, Milan, what you're doing right now, what Suresh Bhai Hari and on Dr. Prasad Srinivasan, what you have tried to get together is very relevant and very timely as well, because the challenges are increasing. When I started my service as a state senator, in 2019, I could not put any bill because I was in a special election, so I could not place my own legislation, but I was able to support many. But in 2020, one of the legislation that I worked on was creation of a hate investigative unit within the state of Connecticut State Police. That was the first bill in our state to be able to say that we need a hate investigation unit only in the state of Connecticut. And it turns out my friends from the FBI reached out to me and said, that is our job. Why are you having the state police do it? And I had a response, which was that it is your priority. I know that. But by the way, did you know that when we had a certain president, that certain president took all the finances and funding away from that FBI responsibility? So what had happened was that even though it was a priority for the FBI, when you don't have funding available to be able to address that priority, then it's no longer a priority. So to me, the issue was that if we in the state of Connecticut want to protect all of our citizens from any hate group, whether it's a gang or otherwise, we need to have our own state police ready and willing to be able to do this. And then with that in mind, we actually pushed for this. In 2020, the bill passed the Senate, but it never made it through the House. So does not stop me. So we moved forward and brought it again in 2021. And it did not make it through. But in 2022, we passed the bill and became the first state in the United States to have a law which would have the state police have their own investigative unit only for hate crimes, so that we are way ahead of everyone else to be able to have our own machinery, look at what are the risks to our community and be able to address them and take care of them. So that is functioning. And about a few months after the bill was enacted, our commissioner, James Rovella, I had a brief meeting with him, and he said the information that the state is getting was something that he had never imagined. That in our state of Connecticut, we live in the best part of the country. We are very blessed to live in one of the best parts of the country, but even in the best part of the country, we have to try and make sure that we do not relax even for a second. I just want to share one more thing. The day we passed the bill, the day the governor signed it, there was a press conference, and I spoke at that press conference because it was the bill that I had worked on and written. And after I was done speaking, I got a call from my wife. There were 500 or more pamphlets like this that were put on my front door. And this is from a group This is a white supremacist group that came to my home and put 500 of these pamphlets in front of my home. We have plenty of them if somebody wants them, because we sent it to the FBI, to the Capitol Police, to the state police, and then also to the local police, which was a targeted attack on my home, to be able to say that we are watching you. It actually says that we are watching people who are our enemies, and we are going to make sure that the people who are going to try to impact the makeup of United States will be dealt with. And so this is very real stuff we are dealing with. I stand with our African American brothers. I stand with pride with Black Lives Matter. And one of the events at the Black Lives Matter, when we actually were going to speak, we had to change the session that day. I was specifically asked that if you go there, it's going to be not safe for others as well. So you should not go. And I said, I cannot walk away from this. So we had to cancel the session that day because of the direct threats that are there around people who stand up to this. I just want you to know that we are in one of the best states, but we have to continue the work that we are going to do. And it is going to be necessary to use the law, the lawmakers, the leaders, the Attorney General, the federal law leaders like Senator Blumenthal, who has been clear from day one, because he has recognized and he has been a strong voice against everyone. The two of us have stood together when our Jewish brothers and sisters were attacked. This is very real. The unfortunate trajectory for anti-Semitism is getting worse. The unfortunate reality of all the hatred is getting worse. So I'm your partner. We are all your partners, and we will not let any of our communities be alone ever. I'll stop here. I'm sure there are going to be questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saud. And the second question is in the immigration area, and we are honored that we have our Honorable US Senator Blumenthal. So the next question is from Suraj Kurtakoti. And question is, what are you doing to do or doing for legal immigrants who are stuck in the immigration process, which some say would take decades to become a naturalized citizen? Legal immigrants who have been abiding, tax-paying, and contributing immensely to the American society.
Let me begin by highlighting a point that Mayor Bronin made. You know, as I look at the people on this call, including Professor Saluja, distinguished editor of a major magazine, you are all in touch with your communities, with others who have that very same question on their minds. And so I hope you will encourage them to be in touch with me, because the support for immigration reform is so important, and we should highlight the positive. Martin Luther King once said, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting, that hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. I often go to immigration and naturalization ceremonies in our courts. I started when I was a law clerk, I'm embarrassed to tell you, 50 years ago. And it was one of the most moving experiences then. And every time I go, I try to go every Friday when I'm in Connecticut. I go maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I am moved to tears because I see America. People from India, people from China, people from Russia, people from South America, every country in the world coming to America through the legal immigration system. And we should welcome them. In fact, what I tell them is, I want to thank you for becoming an American citizen. We need your energy and your talent. We're a nation of immigrants. That's why we're the greatest nation in the history of the world. So immigration, we need it. The business community needs it to fill jobs. Our scientific community needs it for the research that's ongoing. Our schools need immigrants as teachers. We need them in every phase of our lives. And for the legal immigrants who are trying to get through the system, we need to invest resources. Let me repeat, we need to invest resources so that more visas can be granted, so that more asylum seekers can be adjudicated, so that more people can avail themselves of their rights when they are persecuted abroad or seeking asylum here. And right now, there are so many backlogs in our system that it takes years for someone to become a system. Now, in 2013, the United States Senate passed major immigration reform to provide a path to citizenship, a path to earn citizenship for people who are undocumented here, who have paid taxes, played by the rules, abided by laws, raised children, and have lives here working for businesses and other enterprises. That bill passed the Senate by an overwhelming bipartisan majority. I helped to lead that effort, along with others like John McCain, John Cornyn on the other side of the aisle. On my side, Senator Schumer and others. It went through the Judiciary Committee. It never received a vote in the House. I continue to believe we can do immigration reform, including border security. We should not be dismissive of the need for border security, but we need to provide more rights, real rights that can be exercised by people seeking asylum. We need to deal with the dreamers who were brought here as children. This is the only land they know because they were brought here, many of them as infants or children, and English is the only language they speak. And they have been through our schools in Connecticut. We've been advanced in providing access to education to them. It is one of the major topics of our time, and we need to reform a broken system. It is truly a broken system, and I will champion it with passion and fervor because I believe it is so important to this country, to all of us, so that we have the talents and energy that immigrants bring to our great country.
And now I think, there is a time to listen to the chief editor of a weekly newspaper. He's Professor Indrajit Saluja. He's a teacher, he's a scholar, he's a writer, publisher. And that, weekly newspaper is Indian Panorama. And the one of the top issues which he has, its exposure is full of, those wisdom of the ideas, which he would like to share with you at this moment. And he's one of the very prestigious, award winner of Jewel of India, where, the 72 Indian Americans, were honored. So he's one of those. So I'll request that this wisdom also, let's hear from our professor, Indrajit Saluja.
And Sharmaji and honorable
Yes, sir.
speakers and our respected participant, I wanted to clarify that we will continue question answer session. I'm keeping eye who has registered online, as well as I got some of the in the chat. So we will continue after this discussion. The question answer discussion is not over, and we will try our best to accommodate all your questions. Thank you.
Okay, we can do that.
Professor, we are not able to hear you. Okay, it looks like we have audio issue to Professor. Yeah. So can we go with the question answer and we will see if the audio is working?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
All
sure.
right.
That's something. Yeah.
Next question we have from Jay Ganguly. And this is an open question. How you deal with the phenomenon of pointing out hate being described as hate? One is expected to be politically correct and not point the source ideology of XYG without risking branded XYG phobic? How can we as a society stop hate when we do not have the honesty to discuss its root causes, which will invariably lead to an ideology? Is resisting hate and the question mark. Hope question is clear. Please let me know, our distinguished speakers, if I need to repeat any part of the question. I'm going to unmute Dr. Soud. Can you please unmute yourself?
Thank you so much for allowing me to. I think you're going to call it like it is. If somebody else is taking the gloves off, you take the gloves off and call it like it is. This is America. We will call people out who are going to use hate in any shape or form, and we should be able to report it. Don't take law into your own hand, but call the law enforcement and then share your concerns with them and then get people to stand with you. This is what we have to do. If you look at, again, Anti-Defamation League has done it very well. I am a student and a partner with Anti-Defamation League. They would stand united and get coalition, but call it like it is. And that's the only way to be able to fight it. And educate.
Thank you, Dr. Soud. Next question I have from the Grace Brangwen. What resources are available for those who feel they may be victims of hate crime?
I can begin to answer that question. First of all, you should report it to the police. A hate crime is a crime. You know, very simply, I was a prosecutor, state attorney general for 20 years, United States attorney in Connecticut, chief federal prosecutor for 4.5 years. I spent a lot of time in law enforcement, and the way crime can be stopped and prosecuted is for people to report it. If they fail to report it, it can't be deterred or prosecuted or apprehended. So we should never look the other way. We should never excuse it. We should never say, well, it was just a prank. So-and-so didn't mean it. You know, hate speech has no First Amendment protected when it's combined with any degree of violence. And even hate speech should be reported because it may be involving people who are suspected of other kinds of crime. So one of the main objectives I have in the bills that I've introduced and that have been passed in the United States Congress is to provide reporting mechanisms, confidential reporting mechanisms. People feel retaliation. They should be protected. The police should be trained. You know, hate crimes need to be investigated in a certain way, different from robbery, for example. Police need to be trained, and we're making available more resources to do it. But my advice is report it to police, stand up, speak out. You are helping to fight it if you do. Of course, in many other ways, it can be fought as well with your involvement in groups that are advocating for legislation, activism, such as we have great leaders on this call who are activists and advocates, and be part of the groups. Milan is leading the way through this conversation and many other ways. My thanks to Milan and the leaders from the Milan Cultural Association who have put together this call. And we need to talk to each other as well as talk to the police.
Thank you so much, Senator. The next part of the question I have, which is Mihika Joshi. She is a high school student and she has a question. I would like to know how the youth can play a role in building a more.
I think, Dr. Prasad wanted to say something.
Sorry, okay. I'm just going to unmute Dr. Prasad. My apology, I thought. Can you please go ahead and unmute yourself, Dr. Prasad?
Just to build on to what was just said by our senator, both at the federal level and the state level, they've talked about initiatives that they've got passed through in legislation, both at the US Congress and in the state Senate and the state House signed into law. So that is what information we talked about educating everyone with, that we have a system. We have a system, as Senator Blumenthal so appropriately said, that unless we report and take it forward, these will continue. So the first message that anybody and everybody should be aware of is there is a mechanism, both in our state, both at the local level, as well as the federal level. Please take advantage. Hopefully you don't. We don't want anybody to have to go through that situation at all. But if one is unfortunate enough to have witnessed it or experienced it, we have a system in the state that we need to report. And I'll just add on to one component which I've heard about is that sometimes the police authorities don't take some of these complaints very seriously. And that obviously is a misfortune for our state. When that does happen, that's where we have our leaders. That is where Milan will come in. That is through you, through the Milan organization, people can approach the appropriate leaders and say, hey, I did go, I did report it, but somehow it was not taken seriously. So just the fact, we need to report, and if we are not heard and not taken seriously, let's not go back home and do nothing about it. We can move forward because we have multiple organizations, we have leaders who are very supportive of every community, and they need to know if there are any cracks in the laws that have been established in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad. And the next question is from Mihika Joshi. And as I mentioned, she is youth. So I would like to know, the question is, I would like to know how the youth can play a role in building a more inclusive world.
I can start with that as well. And I will include, Mira, your answer and also Sarvesh Damle's answer because it's similar. Which is what can we do at this time from a policy perspective to have an inclusive community? I was fortunate to be able to co-sponsor and take one of the bills, which is on Asian American studies in the state of Connecticut. So our children in the state of Connecticut would be able to have the opportunity to have historical learning about Asian Americans in the United States and get a better understanding of this diverse community. And then what happens is that this becomes an understanding of where an individual is coming from. And that's where from the education early in the school system is when inclusion starts. And then when it's normal to have being an American with different appearances. That's the beauty of America. We are the best country because we are diverse. So that propagation of that understanding through education and developing friendship and having your values be shared is going to go a long way. From individual responsibility, from a policy, we have put that curriculum and educational effort for our school systems already in place.
I think that is a very, very important point that Dr. Thodanwar has just made. And I'm just going to be really blunt. Young people deserve to learn, even when we disagree with what they may be taught. Banning books is not the answer. Banning books about tolerance, about people who are different, we should rejoice in our differences. That's the United States of America. The people on this call, as I look at the people on this call, what I see is America. Different races, different religions, different national backgrounds. That's America. And our education should reflect our differences and not try to make us all the same. And that's what young people deserve. And that's what they can teach us. You know, with all of the bad things happening in our country today, I am inspired by our young people, by the generations of our children and our grandchildren, because they have less hatred, I believe, than our generations did. And you know, there's a song, there's a famous musical, it's called South Pacific. I don't know whether any of you are familiar with it, but there's a song that is sung by a woman who is a minority, Japanese, on an island with American servicemen and women during the war. And she talks about prejudice. And she says, in effect, we're all born without hating each other. Babies don't hate each other just because they have different colored skin or different religion. And the word of the song is, you have to be carefully taught. Prejudice and bias are taught. And that's why I think our young people can lead us. They can educate us, and we owe them an education that emphasizes how our differences enrich our lives.
Senator.
Sir, it looks like, you know, the start is the grassroots level where this K to 12 is a very important, you know, place to learn and to, you know, be in that situation where they can bring, you know, the end to this racism, because these young people, their mind, you know, the education which we are talking about is very much needed, you know, at this level, because this is where they develop the personality. This is where they develop the thought process. This is where they distinguish between good and bad and all those. So the education, especially at this level, is highly desirable.
Thank you, Sharma. And next question we have from Manoj Mishra. And the question is, do you think systematic racism exists in society? What specific policies have been or should be implemented to address it? Also, what can be done by local leaders to help advance equality?
Yeah, I can take a start at this. This is one topic I can probably speak for hours on easily, but I'll just be short. Look at our African-American brothers' experience. Every aspect of their lives, whether it is in their home that they can buy, the redlining that they have experienced, the lack of similar healthcare, the lack of being able to have healthier life, that is all part of a systematic policies, which have actually resulted in a challenge where the lifespan of our African-American brothers is less than anybody else in the state. And that's something that should be unacceptable to us. Now, even though we all say that housing is, there's no bias, but there is structural systems that have caused this to happen. And then we have to fight this. And there's a policy part, but even the corporations are doing it. If you look at the menthol combustible cigarette, they're 4 or 5 times more frequently used in African American because they are marketed to them and they're developing cancers at a much higher level. So corporations are doing it, the policymakers are doing it, and to fight this, we have to all become super vigilant. And that is going to require us to be one for all and all for one. So if my African American brother is going to be targeted, I'm going to stand there. If my Jewish brothers and sisters or Hindu brothers and sisters or Sikh brothers and sisters are going to be targeted, we have to stand united together as one voice. And that is America, and that is our future, and that is the future we should give to our next generation. It's important because many times people who immigrate from another part of the world, they may come with their inherent biases, but America is a place where we are one family, one body, and we have to get to that level to stand up united. So I'll stop here. I'm sure there's more people who would love to add more.
Any more question?
Yes. So the next question we have, and this one is from Saurabh Vaidya, and this is for Dr. Saud Anwar, this from the South Windsor. What to do if neighbor is shouting and videotaping kids us when we are in the backyard, even during daytime, and not making any noise? They also use word like this. It's not a third world country. Please advise.
Well, reach out to me after this, but nobody should be videotaping your children in your home. And you need to actually reach out to the police and share your concern that if people are videotaping your children without your permission in your home, that's not right. And if they're making comments like that, perhaps there's an opportunity to educate that individual, and perhaps another person who's elected with the town or the state can intervene and share. If they have questions, concerns, maybe there's an opportunity to educate them and have them feel more comfortable with the environment that they're in. But this is not healthy, what somebody is doing.
Thank you, Dr. Sayu. Next question we have from Mayank Bhargava. How can we get better at resolving hate within school and office places?
I'm a great believer in conversations and honesty. I don't know what your workplace is like, but we in my office talk about issues frankly. When members of my staff, people who work in my office, others who work in other offices encounter bias or bigotry, we should talk about them. There's no point hiding it. And I think we can bring out the best in each other when we are honest and we learn from each other. And by the way, law enforcement and police, as well as people who run the court system, people who are in charge of the justice system, including our judges, should be talking about these issues as well, so they can better understand from others who work with them of other races and religions. So I think open conversation, to be honest about what people have heard and to elicit the support of coworkers and friends, I think is very important.
I think I'll just add, beautifully said, Senator Blumenthal, as always. I just said that ignorance is the enemy, and we have an opportunity to overcome the ignorance. And at least if the ball is in our court, where there's ignorance about us, you actually get the ball to the other side and say, this is who we are, and then this is our background, and then humanize each other. And you would be surprised that deep inside, all humans have a capacity to appreciate each other, but they have internal barriers, and sometimes seeing the human of each other just allows us to become better people, and that's where the opportunity of interaction is going to be useful.
To continue on this conversation, and as I definitely agree with both Senator Saud Anwar as well as Senator Blumenthal, it's all about conversation. We need to get people at the table, whether it be the school, whether it be the office setting. I mean, there are going to be prejudices. We all have, unfortunately, some form of the prejudice or the other. But prejudice is one thing, and taking it to hate, to taking it to anti-racism, that's a different level altogether. So conversation is the first and the foremost thing that we need to do. Of course, we have the reporting mechanisms and we take it to the nth degree. But before we get there, every office, every school should have the opportunity to bring in whoever's concerned to the table and have a conversation, as Senator Blumenthal said, in an open, frank discussion as to what is it about the other person that concerns you or that bothers you. Conversation is the key.
Thank you, speakers. This is another online last question I have here from Tanush Raju. What policies have you helped institute that against oppression and racism?
Policies that we've adopted, at the risk of repeating, let me just say, again, we passed a specific measure that strengthened law at the federal level. It's called the No Hate Act. We passed it right after COVID in the wake of the attack on Asian and Island Pacificers. You'll remember those attacks. Mazie Hirono and I led the effort in the Senate to strengthen laws with policies that provide resources for reporting, more training for local police, encouraging states to pass stronger laws. And one of the reasons that we passed it, frankly, was what happened in Charlottesville. You remember what happened there with the violence that occurred and actually the death of a woman named Heather Heyer. I named my bill after her, as well as Khalid Jabara, who was murdered in an anti-LGBTQ violence. And what we need are those kinds of policies at the federal level, as has been said very, very eloquently, more resources for the FBI, more resources for the Department of Justice Community Relations. I champion those kinds of resources. That's another example of policies that we need: support for state and local law enforcement, and then also establishing reporting channels so that there are ways for people to report hate crimes when they occur, if necessary, anonymously, if they fear retaliation. Those are some of the policies. I'm sure others have other ideas.
At the state level, I'll just share with you, look at some of the bills I've sponsored, but the bills that become a law is Public Act 22-9, which basically is the one with the hate crime investigative unit. We actually have education for curriculum for Asian studies. One of the bill that did not pass, I was trying to make Diwali into a holiday with Eid a holiday and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur holidays for the state. I put them all in one bill so that we can have the Muslim, Jewish, Hindu communities all unite together in one voice to be able to say, hey, we're going town to town. We need every town in the entire state to follow that. That bill did not make it through, but I'm going to keep pushing for that because Farmington was actually taking the Jewish holidays away from our Jewish American community in Farmington. And that was not acceptable. So I said, rather than having to fight these battles one at a time, we should actually make the entire state have these holidays be celebrated, because the population has reached a critical mass that it's very relevant for us to celebrate each other. And so that's something that is going to be important. These holidays where there's a holiday, we have a celebration. When I go to Diwali, when I go to Holi, I'm actually enjoying my brothers and sisters' experience of celebration. That is what we need to do with everybody. And then I think Milan is doing a phenomenal job around that area. And Mayor Bronin has been doing this, and Senator Blumenthal is at all of the events in the communities as well. So that's what we need, is to learn, allow people to educate and also enjoy each other's perspectives.
Thank you, Senator. And we have the same question on the Diwali, which you have already covered in the online chat I got. Another question from Vikram Bhandari. Is there a publicly available list of hate groups and individuals in Connecticut? Maybe it will help, and including in background checks.
Anti-Defamation League does some research. They have done very good and comprehensive research, and Southern Poverty Law Center has some research which looks at and tracks some of these groups. The number of groups in the state of Connecticut have increased in the last few years. These are organized groups. In the past, you used to have somebody in Danbury, but now it's beyond that area. It's quite a few in the state. And some of them are organized, some of them are disorganized. And the internet, what it has done is it has actually created lone wolf kind of situations where an individual would identify with these groups, but not necessarily join them. So that's part of the challenge that we would have. But the organized groups who are sending this information are very much available. I think ADL has one of the best resources that I've seen.
Yeah, ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, or the Southern Poverty Law Center. You can probably, I'm not sure whether the state police have this kind of information, but it is available.
Thank you, Dr. Saeed, and thank you, Senator. I got another question, which is recently. This is from Praveen Akela. This is a very timely discussion with the upcoming election in 2024. Some leaders, for their own selfish interest, will stoke the flames of hate as a political tool. How do we ensure that enablers of hate and racism are dealt with in a legal manner?
So this is, first of all, Dr. Akela, thank you for your question. You're a leader. I appreciate you at the work that you do. I would just say that speech is protected and then hate speech is there, but what the state and the government cannot do anything about the speech, but you can, as public and community, identify the individuals who are spreading hate. And you need to see, because hate speech leads to hate actions, and we have to call these people out. But if God forbid somebody is an elected position and they're spreading hate, we have to all organize to help them pursue other careers outside of elected positions. So that's something that we can all do, is if anybody's spreading hate and they're in an elected position, you stand up united and move them out of their position by votes. But if they are linked with a hate group, then we should call them out, because you also have the right for free speech, and use your free speech right to be able to call people out in that situation.
Thank you, Dr. Saud. And now we have a last question from Vijay. Great meeting. My point of view to combat or overcome this issue in the community is to start from the grassroots. It will take a while, but we will succeed. We as a diversify group should celebrate each other's celebration together. So let's haters know that we are together in this. Thank you so much.
Well said. Very well said. We are
So,
together.
thank you so much, Senator, and thank you, honorable speakers. Back to Sureshji to conclude today's discussion. And thank you so much, all the participants who have joined.
So the audio of Professor Saluja is not working, right?
I tried.
Mhm.
Professor Saluja, can you please speak if you are able to? Yeah, somehow we have an audio issue.
Looks like that.
That's a technical issue in from the laptop.
Yeah, looks like, there is that problem. So thank you very much
Thank you, everyone.
for being with us. And one thing I would say, that our Senator Blumenthal was to give us only 15 minutes to 20 minutes. And look, the way, he got involved, it's more than 1 hour and 23 minutes, sir. You are with us. Thank you very much,
Well,
sir.
This conversation has been so inspiring. I thank everyone. Thank you to Milan Cultural Association, and to you,
It
sir.
shows this subject is close to your heart, sir.
It's close to my heart, and
we need the
100%.
guidance. Will come to you. We will, with everyone, we will make a forum, and it will, further, we will go together. So thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate, for everyone.
Thank
Yourself, our senator. So then where he's
anytime I get to be with Dr. Anwar, my good friend, my state senator, is a good day for me, and I would never cut it short.
He's an encyclopedia, because you take any subject and he comes with the figures and all those type of things, and this is what we're in. So thank you very much.
Your student.
And his passion.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for everyone. And for the audience, for being with us. So thanks a lot and hope you enjoyed and you're carrying a message. Hey, if you see something happening like this, as you said, the first thing, go to the police station and inform. So thanks.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a
Have a good
wonderful,
night.
everyone.
And we would like to conclude the session. We will continue this kind of discussion. So once again, have a good night and thank you so much for joining and all our speakers and participants.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.